Hi, my name is Konstantin Baum. I'm a master of wine, and yes, we are doing another round of VIVINO wine tastings. You asked me to do this, so today I'm going to review 6 red wines that won the VIVINO Wine Styles Award in the Best Value category. There were some really interesting finds amongst the white wines from this category, so let's find out whether the reds are as good. Full disclosure, this video is not sponsored by VIVINO and I will rate these wines completely independently. The Wine Styles Awards are determined by wine drinkers, users of the VIVINO app, and they're given out once a year to less than 1% of all wines rated on VIVINO. You can search for Wine Style Award winners on the app, even though that option is not super easy to find, and you can identify them by the red seal below the wine. Like last time, I searched for wines that cost less than 30 euros or 30 US dollars, have received great scores, and should be fairly widely available. So if you want to join me and taste along, you should be able to get most of these wines in your country of origin. I will rate the wines myself according to the 100-point scale, and I really want to find out whether this VIVINO Wine Style Award is something to go by or whether it's just another award that doesn't mean anything. So let's start pouring, man. So we're starting off with the 2017 Kaapzicht Estate Red from Stellenbosch in South Africa. It cost 11 euros in Germany, and for whatever reason VIVINO states that its price in the US is 30 US dollars. It's kind of crazy how the cost of distribution adds to the price of a bottle of wine over there. So I'm tasting a wine from South Africa almost as if you would have picked it. I will actually do a video on South Africa pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. Stellenbosch is South Africa's most famous wine district and it's most associated with great red wines. They've been producing wine there since the 17th century, which makes you wonder, is South Africa actually part of the New World or the Old World? Kaapzicht is a family-run winery, and this is a cuvée of roughly 60% Cabernet Sauvignon and 40% Shiraz, as they call it. They could also call it Syrah, but because they picked the name Shiraz instead, this kind of suggests that this is probably a more rich and concentrated red wine. It definitely is pretty dark, very concentrated purple color, but let's smell it. It smells of blackberries and cassis, but I also get this old pipe character, which is a bit of a mix between peppery notes and tobacco leaf notes. And for me, this is very characteristic for red wines from South Africa. So it's a bit spicy, herbaceous, a bit wild. If I would get this in a blind tasting, I might put this into South Africa just for this aroma alone. On the palate, it is quite round. It feels like there are a few grams of residual sugar left. It lacks a little bit of structure, concentration, intensity, and length. So it is not a very profound wine. It isn't bad, but it is not great either. The wine got 3.8 stars on VIVINO and I would rate it 84 points. It's good, but it's not very good. Whether it's a good value really depends on where you are and how much you pay for it. If you pay 11 euros in Germany, then this is a pretty good value. But if you pay 30 US dollars, it's not really a great value wine. So let's move on to the next wine. So here we have the 2019 Penfolds Max from Australia. It costs 25 euros or somewhere around 20 US dollars. Penfolds is the most famous wine brand from Australia. They started in the 19th century and they're one of the few wineries that managed to produce large quantities but managed to create great price-quality ratios in each price bracket. Max is a tribute to former Penfolds winemaker Max Schubert, the inventor of the Penfolds Grange, and it's a cuvée of Shiraz and Cabernet Sauvignon, which is interesting, another Shiraz and Cabernet blend. This is not a wine from a single vineyard or from a specific region, it's a multi-regional blend, which is quite common for Penfolds wines. Even the top wine, the Penfolds Grange, is a multi-regional blend. This wine again is super dark in color, it's very deep purple, which is not an insane surprise because both Cabernet Sauvignon and Shiraz are able to produce quite dark and concentrated red wines. So this doesn't suggest that there are any shenanigans that are going on with this wine. The wine itself smells explosive, very rich and concentrated. It first of all smells of Shiraz with this blackberry, blueberry fruit character and some peppery notes. And you also get some cassis aroma that reminds me of Cabernet Sauvignon. But there's also this beautiful eucalyptus flavor in the wine, which is very typical for Australia and which is probably one of the few examples where it's pretty easy to identify terroir in a wine. Eucalyptus trees grow all over Australia, and you can smell them when you walk around the vineyards, and these flavors actually settle on the berry skin, go into the wax layer on the berry skin, and then end up in the wine as well. So you can actually smell the eucalyptus flavor from the tree that traveled through the air onto the bunch and then into the wine. On the palate, the wine shows good intensity and concentration. The tannins are polished, but there's a nice texture there and also good freshness, even though this wine has 14.5% of alcohol. In my opinion, this is quite a bit better than the previous wine, even though it only received 0.1 star more than the Kaapzicht Cabernet Sauvignon Shiraz blend. I would say this for me is 88 points. It's a very good example of its kind. So the next wine is the 2019 Dido La Universal, which cost 13 euros in Germany and 25 US dollars. So again, there's a big gap between the price over here and the price over there, which is a bit of a shame for the Americans, I guess. This received 3.9 stars on VIVINO, and it has a wax capsule. I'm actually a fan of wax capsules. They look pretty cool, they feel pretty cool. Somehow they feel more natural, even though that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But they can be a bit of a pain to open depending on the quality of the wax. This is a bit more difficult here. So you could just take off the cap like this and then stick in your corkscrew and pull out the cork, and well, then you can pour your wine. So René Barbier is the son of the René Barbier who made the wines from Clos Mogador famous, and he's working on this project with his partner Sara Perez. So this wine is from Montsant, which is a not so famous DOP in the northeast of Spain in Catalonia, and it's made from Garnacha or Grenache Noir. So the wine is a little bit more light colored than the previous two, which is typical for Grenache. Grenache doesn't produce the most dark colored wines in the world, but this is not an issue. Dark color or light color doesn't tell you anything about the quality of the wine. So on the nose, in the beginning, it is a bit reductive, which means it smells a little bit of rotten eggs, a little bit sulfury. But if you swirl the glass a little bit, give the wine a little bit more air, then it opens up and something beautiful might emerge. After a while in the glass, the wine really shows some great fruit flavor. There's ripe cherry there, there's a little bit of strawberry, a little bit of raspberry. It's all quite complex. It isn't in your face and super concentrated. There's a beautiful elegance here. On the palate, it's fresh, vibrant. There's some nice grippy tannins, but they are not overly powerful. It's all quite harmonious and really well made. It's a great wine. So this one was fermented in concrete tanks, and it was then aged in larger oak vessels or concrete tanks as well. So it doesn't have a lot of oak flavor. It's quite balanced, quite subtle, quite elegant. I really like this. As a side note, it's also quite interesting to see that all three wines have a little bit of Syrah in them. So maybe the secret to getting a VIVINO Wine Style Award is adding a bit of Syrah. Don't know. So this wine received 3.9 stars on VIVINO, which is in my opinion quite a bit too low. This is not for you if you want something really concentrated and rich, but if you like elegant, complex wines, then this is right up your alley. I would say this is a 92 point wine, and for it coming in at 13 euros or 25 US dollars, this is a great value. So I'm already reserving this for tonight, but let's move on to the next wine. So the next one is the 2016 Binomio Montepulciano d'Abruzzo Riserva, which comes in at 30 euros or 53 US dollars, and it received a pretty good score of 4.2 stars on VIVINO. So let's pull that cork. Montepulciano d'Abruzzo is a red wine made from the Montepulciano grape variety in the Abruzzo region in Italy. There's no direct connection to Vino Nobile di Montepulciano, which is a Sangiovese-based red wine from Tuscany. Montepulciano d'Abruzzo is normally not the most profound wine, but this is pretty dark colored, so there's a real deep purple here. There's a beautiful balance between the cherry flavor and ripe fruit characters, as well as the oaky, chocolatey flavors that come through in this wine. On the palate, it's really rich and concentrated. The tannins are quite velvety and round, and there's great freshness. So this is a beautiful wine. I wouldn't necessarily say that it is super typical for what Montepulciano d'Abruzzo to me represents, but it's a really well-made wine. Riserva, by the way, only means that the wine was aged for a prolonged period in barrel. This doesn't necessarily mean that the wine is higher in quality, but in general, those wines are more expensive and also higher in quality. On VIVINO, the wine received 4.2 stars, which is, for what I know about VIVINO scores, a pretty high score. In my opinion, it is not as good as the previous wine. I would rate this 91 points. It's a very good effort, and it's probably one of the best Montepulciano d'Abruzzos that I've tasted. The next one is from my home country. It's the 2018 Becker-Landgraf Gau-Odernheimer Spätburgunder Rheinhessen. Did anyone ever say that German wine names are easy? It was rated quite high on VIVINO with 3.9 stars, and it cost 13 euros in Germany or $30 in the States. Interestingly, I've never heard of this winery, so I'm looking forward to tasting it. For a long time, Rheinhessen was a producer of very cheap and uninteresting wines, but it's today a real hotbed for innovation, and there's some amazing wines coming out of the region. So this one was aged in barrique, which is quite common for Spätburgunder or Pinot Noir, and it is bone dry, which is also quite common for German wines. People from outside of Germany often think that Germans only produce sweet wines, but that's not the case. There are a lot of really good dry wines. So the color in this case is a lot lighter, which is typical for Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir doesn't produce very dark colored wines. It's quite common that they are light colored like this. The wine smells of cherries and strawberries. There's also a little bit of spiciness coming through, reminding me of black pepper. On the palate, it's quite round and rich. It has good freshness as well, but it's not a very profound and intense Spätburgunder. For me, it lacks a little bit of concentration, depth and structure, but it's well made. It's not a bad wine at all. It received 3.9 stars on VIVINO, and I would give this 85 points. Here we go, the last one of the tasting, and it's from the other side of the world. It's the 2016 Viña Polkura Malbec from Colchagua Valley in Chile. It received a score of 4.1 stars on VIVINO, and it costs 22 euros or $25. So let's get in there. Colchagua in Chile is one of the largest and most dynamic wine growing regions. It is pretty close to the Pacific, so it's very much directly influenced by the Pacific winds, by the Pacific Ocean. Malbec as a grape variety is more associated with Cahors in France, where it became famous, or Argentina, where it's very widely produced. But Chile actually claims that they had the first plantings of Malbec in South America in the 19th century, and they seem to be producing more and more of it, as Malbec is a pretty successful grape variety right now. One way of spotting Malbec in a blind tasting is going by the color. Malbec has a very dark color, and it has a very distinct purple rim, which is very typical and can point you in the right direction here. The wine is very aromatic and smells of ripe cherries, blueberries, also a little bit of spice, a little peppery notes, a little tobacco notes. So it's quite complex and pretty beautiful. On the palate, it's rich and concentrated and has a lot of body, but it also has a very nice texture. So the tannins are present, ripe, but also grippy, and there's good freshness in the finish. It was rated 4.1 stars on VIVINO, and I would rate this 92 points. So for me, this is pretty good quality. So at 20 euros or 22 euros and $25, you have a pretty good price quality ratio here. Okay, so I would say this was a pretty good lineup. I wouldn't say that the wines were all on the same level or even in the same category, but there were some beautiful wines in this tasting. For me, the Kaapzicht and the Spätburgunder from Germany fell off a little bit, but they were also the cheapest or amongst the cheapest wines in the tasting. To me personally, the best quality price ratio here is absolutely the Dido, which was also the best wine in the tasting in my opinion, an absolutely complex, fragrant, aromatic wine if you give it a little bit of time. So absolutely beautiful, but the other wines also performed really well. Overall, I gotta say that the VIVINO Wine Style Award is a good indication for quality, but you also have to factor in the price. Not all wines are on the same level if they have this award. Some might be outstanding and some might be just good. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, then please like it down here. Subscribe to my channel if you want to learn more about wine. My question of the day is, which was the best wine you ever found on VIVINO? Please comment down below. I hope I see you guys again soon. Until then, stay thirsty, and I'm so thirsty for this wine. So this bottle will be finished tonight. Bye.